Psychology. I'm Dr. Renee Carr, and please introduce yourself in the chat or on social media. Today, we are asking, are trad wives dumb? And for this to not be a one sided or a one time conversation, then please also give your thoughts or questions in the comment section below. So, are trad wives dumb? With over 212 million views on TikTok and over 200,000 videos alone about being a trad wife or canceling trad wives, then this whole notion of a trad wife is really, really causing an uproar, especially on TikTok and on social media. So, what is a trad wife? So, trad, TRAD, is short for traditional. And so they mean a traditional wife is a wife who is enjoying being in a traditional role of marriage with her husband being the head of the household, usually the financial provider or the main financial provider, and with the wife being home with the children, taking care of the house, cooking and cleaning, making recipes, etc., and also looking nice for her husband. It's also with the wife often not working, but that doesn't have to always be true, but also with her focusing on being physically and sexually attractive to her husband. And so, what is happening is that the wives who are posting about enjoying being a traditional wife are being attacked by other women. And the reason for this is that there is this feminist approach that being a wife should, one, not be traditional because traditional wives are being subjected to unfair or uncruel or cruel treatment and inequality. And so, by having a traditional wife or a trad wife posting her videos on the blog, social media, that she is indeed happy, then this is what's causing the uproar and saying that the women who are saying that they are trad wives are being mind controlled or having gaslight syndrome and that they really are being controlled and extremely unhappy, whether they just don't know about it. Some of the other complaints against traditional wives are that the prototype is that she is uneducated, that she lacks intelligence. And this is where the whole, trad wives are dumb, theory or rumor is coming around because they're saying, okay, well, for you to be staying home, then you must be dumb. You must not have any intelligence, and you must also not have any opportunities outside of the home. So if you are happy as a traditional wife, the only reason why you are is because you have no other opportunities. And that to me, one, as a psychologist, is not really helpful because it's spreading a lie. It's not based off of truth or reality. And it's also not based off of the understanding of what happiness is. Happiness is when you are in the role that you truly are happy in and you are flourishing in. And it may be a traditional role, but that you can still have enjoyment out of it because for centuries, for all of humankind, there have been roles in society that individuals take, usually based off of their biology. So, obviously, if you're a male, you are biologically stronger in many areas, not obviously all, but in many physical areas of hunting, gathering, etc. And you're also not going to have your menstrual cycle or being pregnant where you going out and doing hunting is going to actually cause harm to you and to the child, and therefore that group of individuals within that society would then perish because none of the children would be viable. But for traditional wives to be enjoying that role as a traditional wife, the reason why it's causing an uproar is because if a person who is a supporter of non traditional beliefs in marriage, if their argument that having a traditional marriage is actually hurtful, traumatic, abusive, or oppressive, if their main argument is, well, we have to have a non traditional approach to marriage because the traditional approach to marriage is so harmful to women and their children. If you believe that you have to have a non traditional approach to marriage because traditional is being harmful, then when you see traditional wives on social media posting their lifestyles, posting their pictures or recipes, and looking truly happy, now, of course, social media can definitely be a lie and misconstrue the truth. But if you see a person being happy in something that you have attacked or labeled as unhealthy and only causing psychological harm or physical trauma, then it's going to make you have to question, well, is what I believed true? And if I'm seeing that people can be happy in a traditional lifestyle of marriage, then I'm going to have to then, through cognitive dissonance, then go back and say, okay, well, then maybe what I was believing about why I chose to not marry, or why I chose to be more of a dominant female or an aggressive female, and why I chose to not marry at all, or why I may choose to promote that marriage can be outside of a woman and a man, and that marriage is not even necessary at all. You can still be a woman and man together, but living as cohabitating and not marrying, to then marry or to then keep the freedom of the wife. Or altogether, let's just have men out of the picture and then just have a lesbian relationship. So if I'm believing all of these things because I'm justifying it based off the fact in my mind that traditional marriages are harmful, I'm going to then have to be forced, when I see these images on social media, on my social media feed, I'm going to then have to be forced to then question, well, maybe what I'm thinking really isn't true. And therefore, if it's not true, then all the other things I've believed about my lifestyle are also not true. But because that could be so psychologically uncomfortable, individuals are instead becoming very angered, very triggered, and even very abusive, and trolling these women on social media, being very abusive by their attacking them verbally, and even sending very hateful speech toward them on social media, to their homes, or even when seeing them in public. Because the mere presence of seeing them happy is a reflection that, well, maybe I might have not made the best choice, or maybe what I'm believing is not true. And because I don't want to change what I've been believing, because I've been holding on to it for so long, that I have to attack you because I don't want to accept that maybe I might have been wrong. So, on a social level, on a psychological level, even on a political level, as far as feminism, then one reason why there's such an attack on traditional wives and traditional marriages, with the wife being in a traditional role, is because it would have to then undermine all of the other arguments that having women in these roles are unhealthy and unhappy. The unfortunate thing is that we started out with feminism as a very great way to support equality and safety for women, and being able to advance equal opportunities in and outside of the home. But with modern feminism, you're actually becoming more toxic rather than helpful, because you're talking about choice and empowerment for women, but in actuality, you're disempowering and attacking women who choose to be in a traditional marriage and with traditional roles and traditional values. So, making modern feminism more toxic than empowering is because you're having less about equality, but instead having a reverse oppression. And unfortunately, this reverse oppression of women is now being done by other women oppressing the choices of women who do choose to be in a traditional role. One of the complaints against traditional wives, again, not only about her being uneducated and lacking opportunities, it's a misnomer that, well, if you are a traditional wife, then you only can be inside the home. But there are many women who are successful CEOs, who are academic scholars, who are doctors, who are in politics, or who are even executives. And they're very happy then when they come home to still have a husband who is now reversing it, where now he is in charge, he's making the decisions, and then he may be the financial contributor as the predominant provider, or he may even have less income than what she's bringing in. But her role as a wife is something that's separate. She's able to be a successful woman, a successful person in her career field, but she can also have a successful marriage by still having a role where she is not the one at home making all the decisions. In contrast, you can have a traditional marriage where the wife and the husband have the understanding of, this is my role and these are your roles and your responsibilities, and they have mutually agreed to that. And so those who are against the trad or the traditional wives are creating a narrative where, well, it's only the woman, she doesn't have any money, she doesn't have any freedom or any opportunities, and the man is just oppressing her, basically making her a sex slave or a victim of domestic violence and controlling her, and she can't do anything. But that's really not true. But the messaging is being done to make it where if you're embracing a traditional wife value, then you really have no other value to society, which is ironically going against the actual empowering and lifting up of women who are still choosing to be inside the home. So it doesn't mean that you are a traditional wife and that there is no respect. Oftentimes it's very much more of a respect because although the man may, in some cases, make the majority or all of the income for the family, it's usually the wife in those traditional marriages who is then maintaining the household expenses, what goes where. The husband often is just bringing home the direct deposit and or whatever the income is inside their checking balances, and she is the one who's navigating and dictating what goes where and what's paid where. And the husband may not have any wherewithal of actually where the money is going. In addition to that, it may be that the myth or the belief is that the wife is just a sex slave to her husband. But when you have a traditional marriage that's based off of the tradition of mutual love and mutual respect, it's also for mutual sexual satisfaction. And so just because the woman is focusing on, I want to make sure that I'm not tired or I'm looking in a way that's physically and sexually attractive to my husband so that I can sexually please him, because that might be his way of having a physical relief from stress by having sex and then obviously a subsequent orgasm, then that's my goal because I want to please him and I also will enjoy having sex with him too. So there's nothing of truth saying that to be a traditional wife means that you have this boring, everyday sex slave relationship with your husband. It actually means in a traditional, healthy relationship that you can mutually have sexual pleasure and you can both enjoy it. A lot of the accusations are, well, if the female as a traditional wife is also being more feminine and enjoying wearing makeup and enjoying looking pretty for her husband, making herself feel comfortable to herself is not valued because it's being seen as, oh, well, you're only wearing makeup to look good for your husband. But there would not be a multi-billion-dollar makeup or beauty industry if women didn't really enjoy looking pretty for themselves. And in actuality, when you look at comparison theory or social comparison, women usually get dressed up and wear their pretty shoes just for other women and not really that much for other men. So you have to, when you're looking at complaining against or attacking a group of individuals for choosing a lifestyle that works healthy for them, obviously look at the science behind it and what are the motivations. And if it's a traditional one that's based off of decades or hundreds of years of experience of seeing what roles work for a society and for the evolution and the success of humanity, then if you're embracing that science behind it, then you're really not dumb and you're actually often having less stress, more pleasure in life, and also more satisfaction. And you're able to enjoy raising children if you choose to have children. And if you're able to have children, you're also more likely to be able to raise children in an environment that is healthy, that is less toxic, and that also has more roles in their family that's creating a positive reflection and a positive model of pro social behavior, of community, of caring for others, therefore having empathy, and less of a toxic nature that you may see on social media. And also having your children to be less likely to be victims of anger and going out and hurting other people because they themselves are so unhappy with who they are and how they have been brought up. So, when you understand that a traditional wife or a trad wife is simply someone who is a wife who enjoys having a traditional role rather than a non traditional role, We can also understand that the extreme opposition to a wife who enjoys being a traditional wife with traditional values is not merely an attack against that female per se or against the women who are traditional wives, but it's more of an attack against the internal frustration and angst that the non traditional wives and the non traditional marriage proponents are experiencing. They're experiencing an extreme psychological discomfort and maybe even a fear that they may have to accept that what I believed about traditional marriages is not true. And because that's uncomfortable, I'm going to attack outwardly because I cannot handle the inward attack of myself for believing something that might have been created from a place of pain or confusion. And then it's safer for me to attack outside of myself than to deal with the pain that I'm experiencing or the justification that I have created to substantiate my sexual preferences, my sexual desires, or my political stance on particular areas of marriage, of equality, and what is not a woman, and what those roles are in society, and what the meaning of being feminine is, as well as any alignments with the modern feminist movement. So that does end our conversation today. But as always, please remember to continue this conversation and doing so using science and love.